Hello, and welcome to the last segment in our Fall Forum series. With us today is Congressman Jim Cooper. Congressman Cooper was first elected to the 5th Congressional District in 2002. Congressman Cooper currently serves on the Armed Services, Oversight and Reform, and Budget Committees. Congressman Jim Cooper, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jordan. Honored to be with you and glad to be with the Donaldson Hermitage community.
Thank you, sir. We'll get started with questions here. And the first thing that I wanted to ask you about is around the pandemic that's currently affecting not only our state and our country, but the entire world. One of the biggest battles that we face on the local level is combating misinformation regarding the pandemic. What is being done on the federal level to help address this key issue?
Sorry, the other phone is ringing in the background. One thing I've done is hand out my cell phone number to everybody in the district, all 700,000 people. So I want to make sure y'all have it too. It's 615-714-1719. So you don't have to go through anybody else. You don't have to cut through any red tape to get a hold of me. Again, Jim Cooper, and I'm so honored to be your congressman. It's 615-714-1719. What do we need to do to combat misinformation? Well, first of all, don't believe everything you see on the internet. Don't believe everything you see on TV. Nashville's blessed to be a great healthcare capital. We have wonderful hospitals in Nashville. And generally, I think if you want to be safe from disease, you listen to doctors and you listen to hospitals. So I think that's what we should be doing. These masks aren't any fun. It's not easy. Social distancing isn't any fun, especially as the holidays approach. But now that we're seeing our nation's third spike in cases, we really got to do what we can to control this disease until we get a vaccine. So let's just listen to the doctors and the experts.
And you mentioned a vaccine, and it appears that while we're right around the corner from getting a vaccine approved, that we're still probably several months away from having that available to the majority of Americans. What can the federal government do in this time frame to help ordinary Americans and businesses affected by COVID-19?
Well, the federal government has never spent more money to help both individual citizens deal with the economic impact of the virus. The $1,200 stimulus checks, never been done before in history. The $600 plus up for unemployment benefits, never been done before in history. The amounts that spent are literally in the trillions. So the Great Society and the New Deal weren't this big. And remember the concentrated period in which this has all been spent, because we've only dealt with the virus now for about 9 months and all this money's already been spent. And the House of Representatives has a lot more coming if the Senate would just go along and the president would help push it into law. There's so much that needs to be done. I'm hopeful that a vaccine will be developed very quickly. It probably is the fastest development for a vaccine ever before in history. Normally it takes years for this to happen. We're actually having some trouble right now getting the clinical trials with enough African Americans and people of color to participate. And these are some of the hardest hit communities, but they need to volunteer in equal numbers so that we can make sure that the vaccine works for everybody, regardless of skin color. But a lot of exciting work is going on at Vanderbilt, for example, and at Meharry, 2 locations right in Nashville. But it's really going on all over the world. And I'm confident that we'll have a vaccine sometime next year. It's going to take a while to get enough doses for everybody, but I think that we will see record vaccine delivery. I just hope that the vaccine is not only safe for the people who take it, but also that it's effective. You know, some vaccines are more effective than others. You know, some year the flu vaccine is really good, some years not so much. Sorry, that's my dog barking in the background. I don't know why the noise is happening. Sorry. He's excited about something.
No problem. No, he's voicing his support.
Let me let him out here. Sorry. I think he saw a squirrel out the window or something. Got him all excited.
No problem at all. The thing that I love about Zoom is it shows you the real side of people. Talking about the vaccine just a little bit more, do you think that certain populations, such as the elderly or those that are at high risk, would be in first in line for the vaccine?
I certainly think so. And also first line health workers and others that, like the police and firemen who are directly exposed to it, school teachers, but those who need it the most should be getting it first.
Absolutely. Thank you. You've had a couple of pieces of legislation that are would be pretty impactful to Americans in the Restaurants and SOS Acts. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Well, the general COVID relief packages that we passed were huge in size. The CARES Act alone, just passed like in March early on, that was $3.2 trillion, just a fantastic amount of money. But they didn't take care of the sectors of the economy like we have in Nashville, the hospitality industry. That's been particularly devastated. And Nashville is one of the hardest hit cities in the whole country because so much of our economy depends on tourism and music and things like that. That's pretty much had to shut down totally. Look at all the big, beautiful hotels in downtown Nashville. Many of them just brand new and largely empty because the tourists just aren't coming. The planes aren't full. The airlines have reduced things. They're really hurting right now. So special relief I thought was needed for particular sectors of the economy. Now, the airlines got a bailout in the first relief package, but the restaurants didn't. And restaurants, that's a big part of the entertainment industry. When people come to town, they want to eat out. And they got to be able to make a living. Same for our music venues. And Nashville wouldn't be Nashville without our music. So these venues, these are where stars are born. We all have our favorite ones. They're incredible. But they're struggling small businesses, and we don't want them to die because they were the first to close. They're probably going to be the last to reopen. And it's not their fault. It's just that their business model involves crowds and a little bit of drinking sometimes and awesome music. So we got to keep them strong. So I was proud that I was able to get the Restaurants Act and the SOS Act and the latest House relief bill. Now we just need to get that passed by Congress.
Great, thank you. Shifting gears a little bit, I'd like to get your opinion on a couple of things around voting. Just in Davidson County and in Tennessee, voting numbers have been just massive. Turnout has been really, really high so far through early voting and through absentee ballots. Have the long lines of people and the mail-in ballot requests shown the need to expand voting access in Tennessee?
Well, I'm encouraged because I think the bigger the turnout, the healthier the democracy is. And from all the signs we're seeing, we've got the healthiest voting turnout we've had since at least 2008. I even saw one newspaper article saying it was the biggest since 1908, which would be even more extraordinary. A lot of people are interested in the election. They have a stake in the outcome. We have not only the presidency on the ballot, but a U.S. Senate seat here in Tennessee. And there are other races that are super important. The media brings a lot of attention to this. A lot of folks have strong opinions on both sides, but I think high turnout is good. And I'm proud of the Davidson County Election Commission because I think they've done a good job of trying to make sure that voting in person is safe. When you walk in to vote, as I've already done, and I voted early, if you feel completely safe. You don't have to touch a thing. You touch the machine with a coffee stirrer stick. So you feel completely safe. Everybody's masked up and everything. And they process you very quickly. So I hope other counties are doing as well as Nashville is, but I've been proud of the work that Jeff Roberts and his folks have been doing at the Davidson County Election Commission.
Are you concerned at all with intimidation tactics at voting precincts next Tuesday?
Well, remember, by the time the actual election day comes, we will already had 2 or 3 weeks of elections, and most people have already voted. But I don't like intimidation at the polls whenever it happens. There's a pretty strict rule that you can't have anything political within 100 feet of the polling place. Of course, some bad people could try to linger and intimidate outside of that, but that's why we have law enforcement, and I'm hopeful that they'll be on the job to make sure that everybody is freely able to exercise their constitutional right to vote.
Great, thank you. I want to talk a little bit about the city of Nashville. So your brother has now been mayor for a little over a year. He's had a very tough year, to say the least, with the COVID-19 pandemic and the aftermath of the March 3rd tornadoes. How often do you speak to John?
Actually, less often than people think. We're brothers. I've got another brother too, and we all need to hope and pray he doesn't go into politics. But everybody needs to know I'm so much better looking than my brother, the mayor, and I'm taller than he is. But don't remind him of that because he's a little sensitive on that topic. But now we've had a sort of sibling rivalry our entire lives. But he's awesome. I was totally for him for mayor. I'm sorry that he's had so much misfortune to deal with because no mayor wants to be mayor during COVID. During the tornadoes, we had the derecho winds some people forget about. Yeah, there's been a lot on his plate, plus a lot of budget problems that have accumulated over many, many years. And somebody had to deal with it, and that's what he was elected to do. And, he won with like 70% of the vote. It was an awesome victory.
How helpful has the state and federal government response been from his perspective, regarding COVID-19 and the March 3rd tornado?
Well, everyone always wants more, but in just raw numbers, the federal government has never been more helpful in all of American history in response to COVID. Remember, before COVID, we had FEMA down here, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, with operations in Hermitage, their community center, and also they were in North Nashville, and then they had office in Mount Juliet, because we were really hammered. I know I worked with Samaritan's Purse. I brought my chainsaw out, and there was a wonderful effort there organized at Donaldson Fellowship Church. As the community really did a lot to heal itself, but federal money also helps because people need money to rebuild and everything like that. And FEMA was on the ground writing checks, and that's what we wanted to happen. In fact, I worked closely with Governor Lee to make sure that he applied for aid as early as possible, because you don't want to wait for the accountants and lawyers to figure everything out. People needed money immediately after the winds hit, and they lost their roof, lost their livelihood in many cases. So it's been a multiple series of challenges. And then I didn't even know what the derecho was, but those winds, I tell you what, they're a killer. And, people sometimes forget that they hit us too. So this extreme weather we've been facing is a pretty scary thing. We got to make sure that, I'm hoping and praying the river will stay low, because, Donaldson Academy was just hammered by the floods that they faced and everything, and the winds. And they've really had a hard way to go for about the last 10 years now. So we've got to make sure that institutions like that keep, Nashville strong. It's not the city so much as it is vibrant neighborhoods. And Donaldson and Hermitage are totally awesome. I didn't know Donaldson was as cool as it was until they started the Cool Donaldson campaign. But things like that farmers market, it's great. It's community working together. And my favorite Chick-fil-A is the one over at Hermitage. That's awesome. There's just so many great institutions. It's fun.
Yeah, and I will vouch for you in regards to the tornado response. I've personally seen you at least on 3 occasions with your chainsaw. So you definitely back it up, and we appreciate that.
I'm pretty good with that chainsaw, man. Those are awesome machines.
I was impressed. I was definitely impressed. Want to ask you regarding a question regarding your last primary. So that was, to my knowledge, and I believe this is accurate, that was your closest race to date. Do you think that primary challenge this year has made you a more effective congressman?
Well, I welcome competition. That's what keeps America strong, whether it's in business or in politics. Tennessee has a very low requirement for anybody can run. All you need are 25 signatures. It was not my closest race. There was actually a homeless guy who ran against me about 10 years ago. He got a higher percentage of the vote. But generally, my opposition has been in the fall in the general election from Republicans or independents. This was unusual to have a primary opposition. But, I won with 17% margin, which is considered a huge margin. So, but I welcome competition at any time. That's what makes us all stronger.
Great, thank you. And I've just got one last question for you. Obviously, by your shirt, you're a huge Titans fan. You got a prediction on the season?
I was disappointed we lost to the Steelers, but we've had a pretty awesome season. And with all the COVID troubles and everything like that, it's just a pretty amazing team. And that Derrick Henry, he can run, man. It's just unbelievable. But there's some other folks who need to probably step up. Clowney is highly touted, and everybody can make a difference. But I'm proud of Ryan Tannehill. He wasn't the most famous quarterback in the world. Mariota was way more famous, but Tannehill's been able to make it work. We've had some close escapes, but to start it off 5-0, that was pretty darn strong. That's amazing. And I'm confident we're going to have a great season, and it just brings people together, makes everybody excited, and it's fun.
Now, one thing about it, Ryan Tannehill has ice in his veins. He's proven that time and time again.
He does. He does.
Well, thank you, Congressman Cooper, for joining us. 2020 has definitely proven to be a very challenging year. It's been very insightful to get just your perspective on a few things. I would like to remind everyone that if you've not voted, to please make plans to do so. Today is the last day. By the time this video posts, early voting will be finished. So you will have to do it in person next Tuesday, November 3rd. Voting is the single most patriotic thing that you can do as an American. Long lines are expected, so please make sure you wear comfy shoes and bring a snack. And thank you for tuning in to this interview and supporting the DHNA. It's been our goal through this entire series to provide you with accurate information and direct access to the individuals that represent you in our government. Until next time, I'm Jordan Huffman, and I hope everyone has a good evening.
Thank you, Jordan.